We'll call this meeting to order, this meeting of the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission for October the 24th, 2024. So we'll start with roll call. Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Franks.
Present.
Commissioner Harrison.
Present.
Commissioner Lindsay is present. Commissioner Mann.
Present.
Commissioner McLemore.
Present.
Commissioner Orr.
Present.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
And Commissioner Williamson.
Present.
We are all present and accounted for. Okay, so the next portion of our meeting is for what we refer to as the time for public comment. It's a time that's open for citizens to be heard on any issue or concern. If you would like to speak on a specific item on the agenda, we'd ask that you wait until the citizen comment period for that item. Each item will have a comment period associated with it. If you have something you want to speak to that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to speak now. And then for any of the citizen comments, we ask you to fill out a speaker card, which should be on the table by the column, and give it to one of our staff members, and they will hand it to me. When you do come up to speak, you'll come up to the lectern, speak into the microphone, tell us your name and address, and then we ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes. So, are there any citizens who would like to speak to the commission at this time? Seeing none, we will proceed on with approval of our minutes. This is item 1 is consideration of approval of the September 26th, 2024 Franklin Municipal Planning Commission minutes. Is there a motion on that item?
Move for approval.
Was that a motion by Scott?
Second.
Sorry. We have a motion for approval by Commissioner Harrison, seconded by Commissioner Orr. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, by roll call, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Staff announcements. Do we have any announcements tonight?
I don't have any announcements.
None? Okay. All right. Next item is for the approval of our consent agenda. And the consent agenda is a motion to accept a series of different items, none of which will be individually discussed. So tonight, our consent agenda consists of the approval of items 3 through 18, and then items 22 through 24 are all on the consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Move for approval. Second.
That was a second by Commissioner McLemore.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a motion for approval by roll call. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison, Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
That motion passes, approving the items on consent agenda. Okay, so the next item for discussion tonight is item number 19. This is consideration of Resolution 2024-91, a resolution amending the Shawnee PUD subdivision to extend the vested rights for the property located south of North Petway Street and east of Shawnee Drive, located at 1101 Shawnee Drive. I turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you and good evening. The request is to extend the vesting period for 2 years until February 7th of 2027 to allow the applicant to secure any necessary permits and commence site preparation. And describing the reason for delay for construction, the applicant explained that when the project was bid out in May of 2023, bids came in several $1 million higher than the project's budget. which is largely funded by a 9% low-income housing tax credit allocation. The project had to be redesigned with a reduction in the number of overall residential units as well as site changes in order to reduce costs. This redesign resulted in a delay in securing an investor and lender. Both have been secured now, and the applicant is working towards closing the financing by the end of this month. The development plan for the Shawnee PUD was approved by the Board Mayor and Alderman on February 8th of 2022. The plan included 26 attached residential units for a site that is composed of 2.24 acres. The plan requested 3 modification of standards. All were approved by the Board Mayor and Alderman. Staff recommended approval with conditions of the plan, as did Planning Commission, and it was approved by a vote of 7-1. The plan is within the first 3-year vesting period, and the applicant has an approved site plan for the property, but has not yet pulled any permits for the site. If the vesting period is not extended, the project entitlements would cease to exist. Stop work orders would be issued if applicable. A new development would need to be approved and would be reviewed against the current local development standards. In reviewing the plan against the current city regulations, the current plan generally complies with today's zoning ordinance. The differences in today's ordinance versus their vested ordinance are minor and could be incorporated into the design without major changes to the plan. The applicant would still need to request the three modification of standards that were included with the original development plan. As it stands today, the water capacity is accounted for and in the studies that have been completed. So staff recommends to the Planning Commission that the Board and Alderman approve Resolution 2024-91 if it is determined that it is in the best interest of the community. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one, is there someone here representing the applicant tonight? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion on this item. Is there a motion for?
Move for approval.
We have a motion for approval by Commissioner McLemore,
Second.
second by Commissioner Allen. Is there any further discussion on the item? Seeing none by roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay, item number 20. Item number 20 and 21 are to the same project. We'll deal with them one at a time. Item number 20 is consideration of ordinance 2024-31, an ordinance to rezone 2.55 acres from residential to R2 district to planned PD 13.73 district for the property located at the intersection of Carruthers Parkway and Dandridge Drive, located at 3595 Carruthers Parkway, otherwise known as the Lofts at CHP, PUD subdivision. So I'll turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Thank you. First, staff would like to note that the requested rezoning is actually for PD 11.76, not PD 13.73. So the correct density is lower than what was posted in the caption. All of the attached documents, including the law-approved resolution, reflect the correct density. I'll now get into staff background. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from R2 Residential 2 District to planned PD 11.76 District for the Lofts at CHP PUD subdivision. The Envision Franklin Land Use Plan places this lot in the mixed residential MR design concept. Under the mixed residential design concept special considerations, Envision Franklin specifies that between Interstate 65 and Carruthers Parkway and north of Upland Drive, existing assisted living facilities may be converted to multifamily residential units. The proposed rezoning is located between Interstate 65 and Carruthers Parkway and north of Upland Drive and plans to utilize the existing structure to create 30 multifamily dwelling units. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Envision Franklin. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to approve ordinance 2024-31. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this item? Yes, please, come to the, can you come up to the lectern, please? Give us your name and address. Okay,
Hi, I'm Yvonne Sanchez, and I live at 101 Fullwood Drive in Franklin. Our house, the windows of our house center right to that nursing home. If you look out the back of our house, that's all we see. We see South Carruthers, and we see the nursing home there, what was the nursing home. And I'm just concerned what kind of property and how much the traffic is already in our area. How much more traffic and cars and people is that going to bring if it's multifamily units? I thought it was going to be, it said on the thing when they sent it to me from the city, it was going to be more of a senior living facility with maybe people with disabilities from what the city sent me, and now it's saying multifamily. So I'm a little concerned about that.
okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this item? Is there anyone here representing the applicant for this project?
Hi, my name is Greg Gamble, land planner, representing Community Housing Partnership. Community Housing Partnership purchased the Southern Care Assisted Living Facility with the intent to repurpose the facility for senior housing. This would be independent living, senior housing, and would include opportunities for apartments for special needs adults as well. At the Joint Conceptual Workshop, we presented a master plan that included 35 apartments. After the architects sat down and really kind of started looking at the floor plan of the building, they realized that 30 apartments was much more appropriate than 35. We were previously asking for a modification of standards to reduce the parking requirement to 0.97 parking spaces per unit. This modification of standards requests asks for 1.1 parking spaces per unit. This is in line with Reddick Senior Facility, which has 1.15 parking spaces per unit. The residents are anticipated to have few vehicles in this location. They will use transportation that's offered by the city of Franklin, more likely, as opposed to having their own vehicles on site. Community Housing Partnership will be managing this property. They'll be maintaining the property. Right now, if you go out there, there's a lot of dead landscape material. They're going to be replacing that. They're going to be limbing up the trees. They're going to be taking this property to a new level of care. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gamble. Okay, is there a motion for this item? This is to rezone. We'll deal with the development plan next, to rezone the property.
Motion to rezone.
We have a motion to rezone. That's to recommend to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. By Commissioner Franks, and the second was Alma? Wait, Scott. We need to arm wrestle. I'm gonna give it to Mr. Scott. Scott Harrison. Is there any discussion on this item?
I just think it's a great project. So thanks for bringing it to us. Thanks for the work.
Okay. By roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison, Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
That motion passes, recommending approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The next item is on the development plan for the same project. This is item number 21, consideration of Resolution 2022-24-83, a resolution approving a development plan for the lofts at CHP PUD subdivision with one modification of development standards for minimum parking for the property located at the intersection of Carruthers Parkway and Dandridge Drive, located at 3595 Carruthers Parkway. Turn it over for staff presentation.
Thank you. Envision Franklin places this property in the mixed residential design concept. Under the mixed residential design concept special considerations, Envision Franklin specifies that between Interstate 65 and Carruthers Parkway and north of Upland Drive, existing assisted living facilities may be converted to multifamily residential units. The proposed development plan meets the goals of the Envision Franklin design concept and special consideration by repurposing the existing building to create 30 multifamily dwelling units. The applicant is proposing minimal disturbance to the site with minor changes proposed. The minor changes include the addition of 9 parking spaces, the addition of safety features on the site, including meeting the auto turn requirements for fire, and providing the required open space and natural area per the zoning ordinance. There is one modification of standards request for this plan. This modification of standards request is to reduce the required parking from 1.5 to 1.1 parking spaces per dwelling unit for a one-bedroom and/or studio for multifamily parking. Staff can support the reduction of multifamily parking minimums based on the data provided by the applicant. The Franklin Housing Authority's Reddick Senior Community has 48 units with 55 parking spaces, which accounts for 1.15 parking spaces per dwelling unit. The applicant has also noted that adults with special needs are an intended demographic to occupy the dwelling units, and they believe the demographic will require reduced parking as well. They have not provided data specific for this demographic, but the parking request is consistent with the Reddick Senior Community parking numbers, as well as recently approved parking requests. Recently, reductions for multifamily parking have been discussed, prompting the approval of a modification of standards on 2 separate projects, as well as a zoning ordinance update to the minimum parking numbers for multifamily units. These projects include a request for a reduction to 1.02 parking spaces per unit for the Middle 8 PUD subdivision and 1.4 spaces per unit for Wood Duck Court for a studio and/or a one-bedroom dwelling unit. To support their requests, both projects base their data on ITE's parking generation manual parking demand. As mentioned above, staff recently recommended a reduction to the parking minimum requirement within the City of Franklin zoning ordinance from 1.5 to 1.25 parking spaces per dwelling unit for studio and a one-bedroom multifamily unit. While the MOS request for this project is lower than the reduction recommended by staff for the zoning ordinance, it is comparable to the other parking reductions that were recently approved, and they provided parking data from a similar project, the Reddick Senior Community, which has similar parking numbers. Staff can support the request. Staff recommends approval of MOS number 1. Recommendation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to approve Resolution 2024-83 with conditions. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing none. Mr. Gamble, do you have any further comments?
No additional comments, but available for questions if you have any.
Okay, so we've got a motion for an item where we will entertain a motion with a modification of standards. So we'll start with a main motion. Does anyone wish to make a main motion on this item
I move that we recommend to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for approval
with conditions?
with conditions, sorry, with staff conditions, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Harrison to recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to approve with staff conditions. And a second by Commissioner Allen. So we have a proper motion and a second on the floor. We will go to the consideration of modification of standards number 1. This is a request to reduce the required parking from 1.5 to 1.1 parking spaces per dwelling unit for a one-bedroom and/or studio for multifamily parking. And staff recommends approval of modification of standards number 1. Is there a motion on this item?
Move for approval.
So you have a
Second.
motion for approval by Commissioner Orr, and a second by Commissioner McLemore. So we have a proper motion and second. By any further discussion on this item? Yes,
And please notice they had also included 3 spaces for employees.
it does include the 3 spaces for, okay. Great. Any further discussion? By roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
That motion for modification of standards for parking reduction passes. We will go back to the main motion, which was a recommendation for approval, with now the approved modification of standards. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, by roll call, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
That motion passes. And thank you, Commissioner McLemore, for your resounding aye down there.
Smile this time. I'm getting closer to the mic.
Okay. The next item is item number 25. This is ordinance 2024-34, an ordinance to amend the Franklin zoning ordinance text as part of a 5-year update and amend the zoning maps of the city of Franklin, Tennessee to establish and rezone property into the new Regional Commerce 4 District, the RC4, and to adopt the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the FEMA floodplain insurance rate maps, updated maps into the floodway district, the FWO, and the floodway fringe overlay district, the FFO. Staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Franklin zoning ordinance regulates uses and sets. The Franklin zoning ordinance regulates uses and sets community development standards for development. It is periodically updated to respond to changing conditions and trends and community preferences and to maintain consistency with Envision Franklin. Envision Franklin recently underwent a 5-year update, and this zoning update follows suit. The zoning update reflects updates related to the recent Envision Franklin comprehensive update, a 5-year review of modifications of standards and variances, state law required changes, topics provided by BOMA and Planning Commission members, and some best practices that reflect changing trends and preferences in the community. Additionally, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has finalized updates to certain flood insurance rate maps, or FIRMs, for some areas of the city of Franklin, and the city of Franklin is required to adopt the updated FIRMs within 180 days of receipt. This is done through updating the Franklin zoning ordinance text to update the panel numbers and also amend the floodway fringe overlay district, or the FFO, and the floodway overlay district, the FWO, to match the official FEMA FIRM boundaries. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this item?
Could we see a map?
I'm sorry?
Could we see a recent reviewed map of the overlay of the new floodplain? Is there a map available?
Yes. It's 60 through 71.
This is the revised map, correct? Is this the revised map?
I'm pulling up the revised map, the updated map.
Okay, good.
Is there one on our iPad?
Yes, it's in the ordinance, starting on page 60.
60.
It's thinking about it. these so that they can be blown up. There are about a dozen pages of these so they can be blown up so you can see the areas that show floodway increase and floodway decrease. The floodway increase is shown by a yellow hatch. A floodway decrease is shown by a purple hatch. And floodway is the most intense area of highest hazard where water is moving during a flood event. The just yellow parts show a floodway fringe increase, and a solid purple shows a floodway fringe decrease, and that floodway fringe is an area where water is stored or backs up during a flood event.
Okay. So there are 12 panels. Did you have a specific question about a panel?
No.
Okay.
The panel in District 2, or Area 2, which would be the Brownland Farms area, Machatcher,
and,
Hillsborough Road area,
okay.
where Brownland Farms is. How it's gonna affect any development in that area. I'm sorry. I'm just concerned in that area, how it would affect any development at the Brownland Farms, right there on Hillsborough Road.
That's on page 62, and it shows,
Thank you.
Jimmy, did you want to address that, or?
Looking at the map, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. Looking at the map, there are slight,
This is not it.
that's it.
Yeah, that's because there's Montechego across the street.
It appears to be slight changes to an already pretty encumbered piece of property, and it would really not change a whole lot from the development potential, and there would still be a significant hydrologic flood study that would be required to manipulate any floodplain or floodway on this property to allow for additional developable land. So overall, not really a big change for the development potential.
Thank you.
You want to tell what the pictures look like? I mean, the yellow means that it was, the floodway was increased, right, with the little slashes on it?
The yellow means that there was an increase. The hatch is the floodway, and the solid yellow is the floodway fringe, the edges, if you will.
Okay, so I think, to your question, there's a little bit of widening of the floodway around the area, around the Brownland Farms area.
So my question is, any potential building, commercial or residential? Okay. Brown, Rebel Meadows, 818 Victoria Drive at Rebel Meadows. Last name is Brown. So, looking down the road, as we like to do, forecasting 5-10 years from now, how that's going to affect any possible residential building on that property, as well as the property across the street from the church there. It's going to require flood insurance, correct?
Well, in order to do any construction in the dark blue or light blue shaded areas, you must remove that land from the floodplain or floodway. So that would require manipulation of the grades and would require an extensive study that would be submitted to ultimately FEMA for approval.
You'd have to elevate that property, is what you're telling me.
Yes, sir.
And then that would force water elsewhere. When you elevate that property up, that water has to go somewhere else, correct?
In order to do the study that I'm talking about, you must prove that you're not negatively impacting upstream or downstream property owners.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Additionally, for the planning commissioners, just to add into what Jimmy said, Envision Franklin actually places this area in the concert. Envision Franklin places the area that's in the floodplain and floodway in the conservation design concept, which does not contemplate any development or floodplain alteration. So to add on to what Jimmy's saying, this area is designated in Envision Franklin as a very limited area for any alteration.
Right. Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Mike Nixon. I live at 1015 Reese Drive, which is very close to, across from
can't.
Brownland Farm,
I'm
the
deaf.
bridge. Maybe that'll be better. I'd like, first of all, the lines that are coming across from Mac Hatcher into the Riser Point subdivision, that's been moved, when I say significantly, it's maybe 100 or 2 feet, but from the blue lines on the map that I saw today are in the 100-year floodplain. The orange line seemed to extend the 100-year floodplain a little bit further into our subdivision. So my question is, when was this done? Is this a new FEMA map? Why is it changing? Is it because of increased development around Franklin, around our area?
No, I can tell you
And-
no.
Okay.
It's based on modeling that FEMA has prepared, and William, you want to, don't let,
There's an also in here. Flood insurance is, when we bought our house, this map had moved where our insurance company said you're no longer in the floodplain. And now this is going to put us right back where we were. So my question is, how many of our neighbors are going to have to be required to take out flood insurance for this particular part of the subdivision? And if so, is that covered under the FEMA guidelines? Is that will all be able to be purchased from the government? If, because there's a piece in there that says in the 100-year floodplain, 25% of the time in a 30-year mortgage, 25% of the time your property is going to flood.
37% of the time.
Close enough. It's a big enough percentage
So-
to think about.
Yeah.
So thank you.
With respect to this map, there's almost no change to Rebel Meadows. There's a widening of the
yes,
floodway, but there's
but
not
all-
an extension of the floodplain into Rebel Meadows.
Well, from the map that I saw today, that's incorrect. It covers 8 more houses in that particular subdivision. The blue line gets stretched into more houses.
Okay,
But you'll have to answer to that. It was a very small
Yeah.
map.
okay.
Just to be clear for our commissioners, and our citizens watching,
Speak again.
just to be clear for our citizens watching and for our commissioners, the blue colors is the existing FFO and FWO. It's the existing floodway and floodway fringe. What's changing is the yellow and purple parts. The yellow parts are where there are increases. If it's a hatched line, if you can see my mouse right here, my cursor here, see the hatched line? That's an area that's increasing in the floodway. This solid yellow area is an area that's increasing in the floodway fringe.
Where is it located by street name?
Street names are on this map.
Mr. Chair, could we go ahead and continue with the public comments? And then if the commission has questions for staff, we'd be happy to answer them.
Right. Are there any other public comments that anyone, yes, sir, please approach the lectern.
J.C. Conley, resident of Riser Point. What is that? 5014 Riser Point Drive. Kind of piggybacking off of, I know FEMA updates, every 10 years? Is that
Is that
Roughly
correct?
so, yeah.
I guess what we're asking is, how did they come to increase the amount of flooding in Riser Point when we haven't had that? So I'm passing a document around here, if that's okay. It kind of shows the additional amount. I'm sorry, my printer did not print any today. Oh, okay. I'd like to pass this around to show you the additional amount. I guess what we're piggybacking off of, it has not flooded the insurance. Some of the neighbors I've spoken to were not required when they moved in 2013 and so forth. So what we're thinking is that's going to, of course, cost homeowners their values in their sales when they go to sell. So we're just trying to figure out how you determine the increase. If I showed you, it adds about 6 more houses, it looks like, to the floodplain where it wasn't before. And then I was going to upstream, if you look at, I guess, the new development that was near Lancaster. I'm taking you to a different page, y'all. What I'm trying to do is there's a new development, a couple years old, nice homes, but it looks like they've added probably 8 to 10 homes on the backside of Lancaster into the floodplain where somebody did development, and that development does not look like it's been affected by the new FEMA map. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, are there going to be any more building close to the river that's going to affect us anymore? If that's, if they come out with it every 10 years, that new development's hardly in the FEMA map, but behind it, if you look there,
That's number 64.
Lancaster has always flooded halfway. I guess it's always been in it, but if you go further up, it's probably 8 houses down. And on the other side, there's a new development that's within 3 years old. So now we have Reese Farms next to us that's being built, which looks like a great development. But I'm just worried that in 5-10 years, how much more Riser Point might be in the floodplain based on FEMA's explanation. I think we're going to have 30, 40 more, maybe 80 more properties next to us. I'm kind of throwing a lot of stuff at y'all right now. I'm just concerned if we keep doing this, that I'll be in the floodplain. I got this letter 500 feet away. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may
Yeah.
attempt to, I
Yes.
moved over here.
Sure, Jimmy, go ahead.
It's my understanding that, I know that when some developments were approved and developed, they submitted what's called a CLOMAR or a LOMAR, which is a map revision to the floodplain, and that may include bringing the land up above the floodplain elevation. Riser Point, that occurred there. There was a CLOMAR and LOMAR approved through FEMA, and that is not always necessarily represented on here. It's an actual text document that's on FEMA's website. If you have specific questions about your property, I suggest we look at that, and maybe you can stop by engineering, and we're happy to discuss that with you, because it may not be reflected on this map, because this is a very broad study that FEMA did. Not when you're talking about individual lots and houses, those may be outside of the floodplain based on a text study that was submitted to FEMA separately. So
The one on the FEMA map actually showed where it crosses over quite a few properties. It just
And-
won't come up right now on the.
right, and they oftentimes may not show up on the maps necessarily, but there is a study that's attached to FEMA's website that does show when those have been approved.
Oh, they're
So-
already approved, so it's going to happen no matter what? Is that-
Well, I'm talking about the Riser Point homes that were brought up out of the floodplain.
Oh, I'm not worried about, I'm just saying what that might occur down the road with the development going on, because that one's affected us now, it feels like. The development on Lancaster.
You're talking about
affected the
Lancaster.
properties
So
around there. I'm
Lancaster did the same thing. There was a CLOMAR and LOMAR approved with that, which in order to get those approved, there cannot be negative impacts upstream or downstream to other property owners. So
But there are a lot more properties on Lancaster that are now in the floodplain that were not before.
that is based on this new study. This hasn't been studied since 2016, so
okay.
there is a lot more specific data to the actual drainage basin. There's a lot more survey data that's available at this point in time, so it's really, it's not one specific property that's affecting another. It's really the whole of the basin, which is a large drainage area that causes the changes, and it's a very complicated model that all this was done through FEMA. The city had no involvement whatsoever other than being notified that it was going to happen.
I was just looking at it as we're getting closer and closer. I'm just
Right.
saying as new developments come on, it looks like we might be in the floodplain before long. That's what I'm getting at.
From a
And
city.
future going.
From a city ordinance standpoint, we have ordinances in place that do not permit other properties to negatively impact you from a flooding standpoint. Now, what happens in the entire drainage basin outside of the city of Franklin, could there be an impact? Maybe, but we have no control over that piece of it.
Okay. I'm sure I'm past 2 minutes.
And perhaps we can continue with public comment,
Okay.
voicing their concerns, and then if
Yeah, this
the
is-
commission would like to ask questions of staff for the clarification, maybe we can handle that after public
Okay.
comment.
Are there any other citizen comments? Please
So
come.
sorry, just one more, and it is to piggyback off of what you have said, and it wasn't planning, but hi, I'm Dia Peach. I've lived here forever. I live at Ewingville. It's right across from Pinkerton Park, and we are in the final phase of the house raising from the 2010 flood. Already, they have had to reevaluate the levels that have to be, how much the houses have to be raised. So my concern is, as we are all entering this final phase of raising our houses and getting new numbers as we go along, will this negate any changes that we've made, or do our changes that are being made right now in this final phase stand regardless of change? Does that make sense? So if my house was originally to be raised, let's say 6.2 feet, and just throwing a number out there, but now they think it might have to be higher than that, like 8, and they raise it the full 8, does this change mean that I will ever have to raise my house again?
I'm not sure of your specific issue, and we may want to look into that further, but these maps will be adopted until there's another study. So wherever your specific elevations are, whatever that cross-section is at your home, that will not change until there's another study, and it may not go up, it may come down. There's really no way for us to know.
Okay,
But
thank you so
I-
much,
yeah.
appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, what we'd like to do is get the contact information for those who have specific questions about their properties,
Okay.
so that our floodplain administrators can follow up with them in the coming weeks.
We can perhaps do that with the citizen comment cards, so they can give you their name and address and provide those to staff, and then staff will follow up if you have specific questions about the floodplain. So outside of that, yes, sir.
Hi, William Morgan, 3110 Del Rio Pike. Simple question. Is this web address going to be permanent where we can go back to it to check these exact maps where they are? Because a place that I was told to go see these was not complete and it didn't have all this detail. So I just want to know the best web address to
Okay,
get
this
these.
is a City of Franklin engineering product that shows the changes. There is a FEMA website that you can, where you
Yeah,
can view.
it's down for maintenance until Sunday, which is, I think some of our problem is that we're coming to this public meeting and
Yeah.
it is down until
Okay.
Sunday night. But as far as these maps right here, where's the best place after this meeting that we can go to see these?
They're on our webpage.
Okay, they're on,
The Municipal Planning Commission's agenda.
Okay.
But we're also working on a workaround because the FEMA maps have been down all day and are planning to be. So we're working on a workaround to make a local map more public. But there is one available on the floodplain page on the city's website as well. So it's on a couple different places.
okay, a couple of different options, but just check with the city planning staff, and they'll get you plugged into a good place to see these changes, and then hopefully FEMA will get their website back up, and you can look at the official, what they'll show up on the FEMA website as pending maps, because they've already passed into the 180-day period, so they'll show up as pending maps, and they'll become effective maps after the date of passage. So, okay. Any other comments from the citizens on this item? On the Franklin zoning ordinance? Yes, sir. You can't speak from back there. You gotta,
He already spoke.
J.C. Conley, 5014 Riser Point. So what we're saying is the FEMA map's already done. We're just here to kind of just say our opinions on it. Is that?
Right, we're
You're
recommending
approving?
approval
Is
to
it already
the,
approved,
to the Board
or-
of Mayor and
or We're
Aldermen.
still working on that.
They're done.
They're done?
They're
Okay.
done.
Yeah, they're done.
We're actually
Be done.
required to adopt them
Gotcha.
within the 180 days.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
that's it.
Do we have any other comments, applicants?
Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Is there a motion on this item?
Move to recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Second.
Motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Mann, second by Commissioner Orr. Is there any final discussion? Yes, Alderman.
Yes, again, I would like to say that one of the changes is putting R2 and R3, adding to that there would be accessory dwelling units allowed, because the concern that I have is a number of the lots are small enough that if someone does build an accessory dwelling unit on their property, it could be extremely close to their neighbor's property.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, questions?
I just wanted to respond to the flooding. I think the conversation we just had highlights one of the major issues that faces the city of Franklin, and that's flooding. And I just want, for some of you that experience it, we do take flooding and changes to the floodplain very seriously. So when the applicants come before us and there is floodplain on their property and they need to alter it or they propose altering it, we have a very robust discussion on those so that other members of the community are not impacted. So those are FEMA maps that we are adopting. But when applicants come before us, we take flooding very seriously. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
And I'd also like to highlight along those same lines that we have an asset that sits as our chair who does this for his living, who's very knowledgeable. So we have, boy, do we have an asset here. We take it seriously, but we take it seriously with someone who knows floodplains. And I'm affected by this. So one of our properties, the first home my dad built, is in the floodplain, and the city required us to lift it. And boy, was he mad because we had to spend thousands of extra dollars. But when that 100-year flood came through here in 2010, we were the only home on the block, because we were the newest home on the block that was not affected. So boy, was it worth it. So anyway, I want to thank you for that. One concern that I have with the changes we're about to pass, and thank you staff for the months and months and months of work you put into this, was about reducing some of our parking requirements. I pray that we're right, and I understand why we were doing some reductions, but just some concerns about that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, by roll call vote then, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks,
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison. Aye. Commissioner Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Item number 26, ordinance 2024-36, an ordinance to amend the Franklin zoning ordinance text regarding materials, specifically materials in farmstead residential and the use of wire fencing. The proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. So, staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This ordinance is a component of the overall ordinance update. The Tennessee Code annotated requires local governments to adopt any requirements related to materials for construction by a separate ordinance, and so this separate ordinance complies with that state law. The ordinance establishes permitted and prohibited materials for farmstead residential building types, which is one of the a new building type that we discussed at the joint conceptual workshop today related to the Envision Franklin update. And this has permitted and prohibited materials because the design intent is to have a more limited agricultural or farm styled building for small multifamily buildings between 5 to 8 units that are associated with the Village Green design concept in Envision Franklin. This ordinance also amends the fencing chapter so that wire fencing may be placed behind other permitted fence types. This has come from a request, well, more than one request from property owners who would like to put that wire fencing behind four-board horse fencing, for example, to keep in pets, not just horses, but smaller companion pets. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion then.
I move to recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Second. We have a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen by Commissioner Mann, and a second by Commissioner Harrison. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none by roll call vote, Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Franks?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison? Aye. Commissioner Lindsey votes aye. Commissioner Mann?
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore?
Aye.
Commissioner Orr?
Aye.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
And Commissioner Williamson?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Is there any further business before the Planning Commission tonight? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Orr and a second by Commissioner Harrison. I'll take that. By roll call, Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Franks?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison? Aye. Commissioner Lindsey votes aye. Commissioner Mann?
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore?
Aye.
Commissioner Orr?
Aye.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Williamson?
Aye.
We are adjourned.